Well, Lisa, thank you so much for helping with my project. I was wondering if you could say a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm retired now. I worked for the U.S. Marshals for 30 years and lived in Chicago, Ohio, and Texas. And I like Texas weather because it's not bad in January when it's 65 degrees. And I just watched the Netflix show about the shuttle with the teacher on it.
Mm.
And I was all up for jumping on that shuttle, but now I'm going like, well, yeah, let's make sure the O-rings are okay. But anyway, I don't really follow the NASA channel a lot, but I found out from a neighbor that there is a channel. But we do go out and take photos of the night sky and things like that. Mine aren't that great. I'm not good at astrophotography, but I appreciate it.
So did I catch that you live in Texas now?
Yes, I'm in the Woodlands, Texas.
Oh, we're like neighbors. I'm in Spring,
Oh, well, it could be
Tomball
either.
Spring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. Well, I really loved your write-up in the paper, and I thought this is so cool because I put a time capsule somewhere in my elementary school, but I never went back to get it, and they tore it down. So
Oh
hopefully
no.
your capsule will work a little bit better than mine did. That was back in Ohio.
That's
So
that's interesting. And you mentioned that you were a child at the time of Sputnik and the first moon landing. Could you tell us a little bit about like before Sputnik? Uh, I mean, how old were you whenever
I
Sputnik?
mean, I was like maybe, let's see, Sputnik was, what was that? It was in the 50s, right?
I'm pretty sure, yeah, 50s.
So I would have been, I can't remember the exact date, but I think, I was born in 1950. So if you count up from that, I'm guessing that probably between the age of like 6 and 8, 9, something like that. But I do remember also that everything was about space when I was growing up. I mean, you had cars that were made to look like spaceships, with those big grills with the points on them and things. You had fins on the back of Chevy, convertibles, Impalas, and all that. My dad always had the cars with the fins on them. And of course, I grew up with the Jetsons, right? And I was really looking forward to us being around in little rocket ship cars by now. I'm kind of disappointed that technology didn't keep up with cartoons. And also, the closest thing I have to Rosie the robot that's the maid is my Roomba, and that's not exactly as much fun as Rosie is.
Oh,
So,
for sure. Doesn't do dishes, doesn't cook.
no, it doesn't talk to you. But yeah, so space is always, I think for our generation, it's always been something that's magical and just, I saw in, I think it was in elementary school, maybe junior high, there was a movie that was put out about Mars and what it was going to be like and everything. And we're all thinking, hey, they've already got the movie. We should be there by now. So we're all kind of disappointed that like now I'm 70 and we're not where the Jetsons were.
Well, in the 1969, when Neil and Buzz landed on the moon, I think you would have been about 19, just graduated from high school.
Yeah, actually, when the moon landing happened, my dad had a moon party. Of course, he had a picture of people mooning on his front door. I'll never forget that. And we all sat around in his apartment. My parents got divorced. He lived in Columbus, Ohio, and we're all in front of the television set watching this. And it was just amazing to see that. And I get so mad at people that say, "Oh, it's all staged," and stuff like that. And then also in the Marshal Service, there was a case where somebody stole some moon rocks. And I think we down at NASA, and I think we had to we had some, interface with that. So moon rocks, I've never handled one or touched one, but I'd like to see that. And I just think that space probably has some minerals that rather than mining, the earth, if we can get it from asteroids or someplace else that doesn't have to take care of mammals and animals and fish, we can find another place to mine without destroying, our delicate earth environment. I think that's good. The only thing I worry about is people are not really good about using their resources correctly. And, the garbage in space, I saw that movie Gravity, and where they got hit by that, loose, dead satellite. And the whole thing is let's get drones up, let's get satellites up, let's privatize satellites. So, who's going to be the waste management services of the space to make sure that we're not littering space to make it more dangerous for our astronauts? And, in the future, what impact does that have on the environment? So I'd like to make sure that space efforts are done with environment in mind, both to save and possibly find other places to find, minerals, but also, let's keep our skies somewhat, navigable for the big programs that have to go up, so.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. I mean, just last year alone, I think there was over 100 rocket launches of satellites.
Yeah, but I don't know what they do with the dead ones. I think they just keep floating in orbit. They need to bring them down or mine them or, put them on a big transport or something and get them back. There's got to be something, recyclable in those things.
Oh, that's for sure. I think most satellite providers today, they either plan on having them deorbit and burn up in the atmosphere, or they plan to send them out to what they call a graveyard orbit, where it's like far enough away that it won't interfere with anything. But then you have like the unplanned events where the satellite just stops working, and what do you do then? And
Right. Yeah, I think they need to think ahead on all these satellite launches and private companies that are getting into it.
yeah, I mean, Starlink, SpaceX is launching thousands of satellites to provide worldwide internet access, which is great from one hand, but on the other hand, you're talking about having thousands of satellites up there. What do you do?
Yeah, plus, our security satellites, who knows how they can be jammed by other satellites. I mean, there's a lot of things to think about with this stuff. So,
Yeah, and then you have, countries like the U.S., Russia, China, India, with their anti-satellite weapons, where they actually launch a missile
Star
at the satellite, and I think there's been several countries over the past few years that have done that with their own satellites to test, but all that debris is
Right.
potentially affecting everybody.
Yeah, I think, what was Reagan the first one that started this Star Wars program or something? I think Mitchell, I think the Woodlands or HARC, Houston Area Research Center, I think they were going to have a part in that. And then also with George Mitchell, he was big into telescopes and, things like that. I was saddened to see that telescope in Puerto Rico come crashing down.
Oh yes, Arecibo.
Right. And and there's very few dark sky areas, and I'd like to see more of that. So if you could get more dark sky areas, you could have some smaller places that people could go and look at space, and because there's not a lot of opportunity when you go to the Davis Mountains. I think you have to make a reservation a year in advance or more. And it's all weather permitted, and I've never done that, but I think that would be really cool. And I love just the views of the earth from the spaceships, that they put out there. And it's just, hopefully we can keep it as green and blue as it is. I don't want to see a lot of brown stuff. I'm a big environmentalist, so when you look out and you finally do get in space, you'd like to continue to see colors and diversity. So
Yeah, I think a big key part of it is taking our waste chain and feeding that back into our supply chain somehow.
Oh, yes, yeah. Minimalism is a good thing too. I'm so glad my kids now buy secondhand stuff.
Oh, indeed, upcycle is another idea too, is that
Right,
everything can be used for something else. Um,
right.
so why do you think we stopped going to the moon?
Well, I think part of it was the two, you know, catastrophes that we had. I mean, we had the Challenger, and I think the other is the Endeavor. Isn't that the one that on reentry?
Colombia.
Oh, Columbia, I'm sorry. Yeah, came right over Anahuac, East Texas. And, I think when the teacher was killed along with the rest of the crew in that one, I think everybody was a little afraid and they took a step back because you have a whole generation of kids that watched their teacher non-exist.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big part. I think economics was a big part, where when they come up with a budget and then it's way over budget and you have to keep going back to Congress and going back to Congress because people don't really have any personal contact with, the space and what you can see and, all the visual things. They don't have a connection. That's the same in wildlife conservation. If you don't have photos out there of wolf dog puppies, African wild dog puppies, they're not going to know what African wild dogs are. They say, oh, those are those hyenas, right? No, they're not. So I think you have to make space more accessible in people's minds. And, that's why I'm thinking if they had more observatories that people could go to, I think we have Brazos Bend, and, there's not a whole lot around. But that, and also, trying to handle the finances. I mean, now we are in the biggest deficit of the history of the United States because of COVID, rightfully so. But at some point, we have to pay that back. We have to pay our debts. And so I think that budget's going to be an issue. And, they have to go with maintaining the people that live here first, and space is kind of a second, you know, to most people.
And that economic thing is not just the US. It's literally
The
almost
world.
every country in the world is in a similar situation.
Right, right.
Mm.
Yeah. So that may impact for a while, but if Musk does a little better than he did with his car, I'm hoping that if there was a mixture of people that could get together rather than competing with one another. I'd like to see private, get Bezos, get Musk, get Zuckerberg, get them all together and say, why don't you guys jointly do something really awesome, and have a Facebook page where you can watch the launch and you can see every day what's going on. Because now we have the technology to share, on a regular streaming basis, what's going on and what they're doing and what they're finding. And you don't hear too much about once they get the rocks, like I have no idea what's in the rocks. So they don't say, hey, we found silver, we found carbon, we found, this, we can like reduce our mining because we can get it here, and do different planets have different rocks, or are they all the same? I mean, we don't know that, so.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And you talked about a personal connection, making it accessible. Pan Am, I understood back in like the 60s or 70s, I think it was the 60s, had like a program where they were letting people reserve tickets to the moon because, they were going to eventually do that. I was wondering if you had heard of that growing up.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, you can reserve a space on Musk's rocket, I think, but it's something like it's out of the realm of everyday people that are going to be paying the taxes to do it. I think it's probably $100,000 or something. It's kind of like going with National Geographic. You got to pay $25,000 to get on one of their ships. Well, the majority of the people can't afford that. So right now they don't have economy seats to the moon yet.
However, Elon says he's planning to build thousands of that completely reusable Starship that he's developing down there in Brownsville.
Right.
Whenever you get to that scale, that's a whole different, um, kind of price point, I imagine.
Right. I'm kind of realistic looking at 1955 to here and what progress we've made. And so turning 70 this year was a tough one because, I'd like to have another 70 years, wouldn't everybody? And so in my lifetime, maybe not. My kids' lifetime, possibly. I'm really pushing them on environment and global warming and, the Boca Chica and the Brownsville and, all that is good, but we've got ocelots down there. It's hard for me to balance this out, it really is. But there's Merritt Island, which is one of the best birding places, not too far from Cape Canaveral in Florida. So I think it can be done jointly. But me in my lifetime to be able to go, I wouldn't, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a biologist, I'm an amateur photographer, so I don't think I'd be on the list.
Um, have you heard of this program called Space Hero?
No.
So it's a reality TV show contest that's in the works. It's supposed to be launched this year, where the winner of which will get to go to International Space Station for 10 days.
You mean the ground space?
No,
Oh,
actually on a rocket. Yes,
oh, okay, not the simulator.
not the
Okay,
simulator.
no, I
Yeah,
didn't know.
and
That's
it's going to
pretty
be a global competition. So even, people in countries who don't even have space programs could potentially get to go.
That would be cool. I'd like to see an international representation from all levels of incomes and, somebody from Africa, somebody from the Middle East, I'd love to see some sort of unification. I mean, if they have an experience like that together, can you imagine how that transcends that friendship when they come back? It's just little ambassadors for world peace. That would be cool.
Or, put the UN in orbit. When they meet, they have Earth below them, and they're kind of have this global view instead of.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they need to be more down on the ground, though. They need to be also under the water to see what's happening to our reefs. They don't have the UN going, and that's possible, but they don't have the UN going in the submarines to see how the reefs have been destroyed in the past 30 years. I was lucky to dive in Hawaii before all this happened, snorkeling, and also in Florida. And then to see the bleached reefs now, you know, it's really sad because our kids aren't going to be able to see what we saw. So
So you've been to a reef before and after. It kind of,
mhm.
and this was in Hawaii, you said?
Yeah, and then also, even in Florida, they had little coral areas that you could actually get out and snorkel, or you could go out on a boat and snorkel, and also the Virgin Islands. But you can see. I mean, I didn't start till late in life. I was probably in my 20s when I had my first snorkeling adventure, but there's a woman that had a really good movie about that. It just was on, I think, Netflix, and I can't remember her name, but she was the head of NOAA for a while. And, she saw it and she documented it. And I think David Dublé, also another underwater photographer, has done a really good job of showing the before and after effects.
Hmm.
So,
And over the course of how many years did I what was the break between the two times you saw the reef?
oh, well, probably about 25 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it went from 25 years, it went from being this dynamic living thing uh, with
Yeah.
coral and fish to just being essentially a stone and dead.
Skeleton. Yeah. Yeah. And there's other areas is. I mean, my area isn't as, it's not like the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. I've never seen that, and I've never seen the Maldives and all that. But these other photographers, underwater photographers, do go there. And James Cameron got with that lady, and they created a vessel to go under, and they documented it. And he became really pro ocean sustainability. So yeah. But I hope we do this, I hope we don't make the same mistakes in other planets that we do on our own. You got to be careful.
And so, did you know that Jeff Bezos actually has a space company?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay. Have you heard him talk about kind of like what he hopes to get out of it?
No.
Yeah, so he did a talk in 2019 where he talked about wanting to develop the infrastructure to allow for entrepreneurs to come in there and develop space, and that ultimately he wanted to see all those earth harming activities move off the planet and the planet become like zoned just for living things.
Wow, it sounds like he and I are on the same page. But I guess he got the idea first. Who knows, right?
But I don't know if it's
He can execute it. I can. I can only hope for it.
but I mean it's kind of a compelling vision, taking all the mining like you're talking about, doing that in space, the power generation. I mean, if you consider the sun is like emitting energy in every single direction,
Yeah.
and you put a sphere at the same orbit as the Earth is, then the Earth is actually only receiving like 1/700th billionth of the sun's energy. So, I mean, just a few little, mega structures of like solar panels, and we could.
Yeah, because you're out of the atmosphere, you don't have to worry about cloud cover, so you're up higher. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but it makes a lot of sense that if you had a rotating solar plant, that you could power, reduce the cost of power places like Africa, and it's really hard to get power lines through, and South America, and far West China, that area through there. I mean, that could be really, really interesting and good, and give people more access to internet and learning, and power and light.
Yeah, it could be a really amazing future. And then um, Elon Musk, he's really focused on that. City on Mars is kind of his thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think Jeff might have a greater view of it. And then if they could throw Bill Gates in there, he's one of my heroes. He tends to look at things for the greater good. So yeah, he'd be a good cog in that wheel.
Yeah, he was doing something about waste recycling and getting water for people. I think I saw something. And then, of course, with the pandemic, he kind of provided a warning of it ahead of time. It's like, hey, we had a few wake-up calls. We should do something about it, and we didn't do anything about it, and here we are.
Yeah, the guy's amazing. He and Melinda Gates are really amazing what they do, coming and bringing. I think I saw a thing on television about some big temple with these monks, and all the kids had to read and do their homework and learn with candlelight. And I don't know if it was a combination of GE or who, but there was a company that went, and they actually had to pack solar panels in by donkey. But then a team got it together and wired it and made it very easy to maintain, by the people living there, because, you can't just call, the geek guy to come out and fix things. So they made it, where it's maintainable. And they were so excited when they turned the lights on and they could actually use lights to see this study. I thought that was pretty cool.
So what do you think about us returning? I guess first of all, when did you find out that we were planning to send astronauts back to the moon in 2024?
Well, I think that's kind of been a talk. I don't know if they had a specific date, but I think, what I remember reading is that the space station is, some of it's getting pretty old. So, that's been functional for a long time. And after a while, things break. So I think a new space station has to come about, and dismantling the old one, and cannibalize what you can. But that technology, am I right, is it like at least 30 years old now?
It's like 20, a little over 20 years at this point.
Okay, that's pretty old technology nowadays. When you have the old DOS computers. Yeah, I'm sure that we can make things, a lot more user friendly, and less dials, more bang for the buck.
Um, but in terms of actually going back to the moon itself, um, I mean, what do you think about that? Is that something that's worthwhile, or is it like the wrong
Well,
time? Or
no, I mean, I think it's doable, and I don't know how much we've actually explored on the moon, because we only landed a few times. And, there's a whole other area of the moon. I love those little rover guys. They were cool. I really like those guys. And, the images that they got back. And now, aren't both of them dead, kind of? They're not functional now. One lasted quite a while. The other one got stuck or something and keeled over and lost power. But I think the other guy was running around for quite some time and kept bringing back really good images, and where we can plot the moon. And but I think more of that would be good, even being able to get it down there safely and then set it up. And there's the dark side of the moon. I don't know what areas they can land on nowadays, but I would think different landing points. In other words, we don't even know our own oceans, much less the moon. So there's a lot that can still be done, and then you could have a permanent structure there, and then go from there to something else. But that's way beyond my lifetime, probably even beyond my kids. But I could see something like that, where there's another launching point.
if you look back between now and Christopher Columbus, that's about 500 years. And if you look forward 500 years, what do you see in terms of humanity's future? Do you think we're still just like on the Earth making these little day trips to places? Or do you think humanity's really figured out how to expand beyond the Earth, and we're like citizens of the whole solar system?
Depends on how well they handle climate change. I mean, first, like I said, first we have to take care of our own house. So, 500 years from now, we may be average temperature, maybe 140 degrees, and we may have nothing but private water companies. And, we may not have fish and food. And, I mean, unfortunately, because our seriousness about our climate and the diversity of the wildlife and fish and everything else. I mean, we're losing species every day. Hundreds of species are becoming extinct, and if we want to do a 500-year space plan, we've got to make sure that our home of Earth is still viable. So I really think it needs to be hand in hand. If you have any sort of long-term plan, you've got to make sure this is still that we can still live here. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's no place in the solar system that compares to Earth. Every place in the solar system, you would have to have some type of artificial environment that you created and be very
yeah,
constrained.
yeah, I don't think mechanical birds and robotic lions really fit my lifestyle.
You know, at the Houston Zoo, they used to have that aviary that you could walk through, and the birds would fly around and stuff.
Yeah, and
I
also cockerel butterfly has butterflies that do that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. You kind of like have the whole little rainforest feel there. I'd like to see something like that built on the moon or in space. I think that would be really neat.
Yeah, well, they, And we still don't know for sure if there's, you know, they keep thinking that Mars has frozen water or something like that. The more we learn, then, you know, I think everybody dreams of finding a species, not like Jurassic Park, but even if it's just some little amoeba that lives in a pond of frozen water, and when you thaw it out, you see them squiggle in a microscope. I mean, I think everybody wants to see that, and that's one thing that that people dream about. I mean, when they made that Mars movie, I wish I could remember it. It was kind of like a cartoon, but they had these potential animals and what they would look like. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Wow. So if it was safe and affordable, would you go to space?
Oh yeah, of course.
How far would you go? Just like to orbit, or take a week-long trip to the moon and back, or would you take a multi-year trip to Mars and back, or what would you do?
Well, I have a dog and I have children, so but I would if you could do a spacewalk on the moon, I'd do it. I'd do an orbit. You know, anything to be able to be up and look down at our Earth, because it is, as far as we know, the most beautiful planet that we know of. And you know, I see those space photos and I'm just amazed at it. And you know, I always like to look at a global view of life, and that's definitely the global view of life. So yeah, I would definitely do the moon trip and the spaceship. I don't know if I'd go out to Mars. I did see that movie where the guy got left behind.
Oh,
I'm not
right.
sure. I'm not sure if I'm quite ready for that.
Indeed.
Who is the actor in that?
Matt Damon.
Yes, yes, yes. That was very well done, though. I thought
In
that was
fact, one of the
brilliant.
astronaut candidates, they asked them, if you could bring something to Mars, what would it be? And one of
Uh-huh.
them said, Matt Damon and extra ketchup.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was amazing. I like the work they put into that to make it, you know, somewhat believable, and all the trials and tribulations he went through. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was good acting, good writing, a nice adventure. So, well, Lisa, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
Well, let's see. I did read the article in the newspaper, but so tell me more about you. You're gonna get this collection together, and then do you already have a spot on a shuttle or something, or do you have a little piece of dirt on the moon that you're gonna put this time capsule in, or what's gonna happen?
Well, so I guess there's several parts to it. One is, up until the end of 2024, I'm planning to interview a person a day, and those videos will be on my website, countdowntothemoon.org, and maybe we'll do some type of summary videos here and there. But NASA is no longer building um, like landers to take things to the moon. Instead, they've contracted it out to these companies. And
Mm-hmm.
one of them, Intuitive Machines, based there in Houston, and Astrobotic, based in Pittsburgh, are actually landing probes on the moon this year.
Oh,
And
cool.
the way it works with NASA is NASA's like, get our experiment to this place. We don't care how you do it. We don't care what you do with the extra capacity. So these, essentially the NASA part of it pays for the entire expenditure.
Payload. Yeah, yeah, for their
And
box. Yeah.
exactly, but the they can do whatever they want to do with the remaining capacity, like maybe send experiments for universities or private companies or what have you. Pittsburgh Astrobotics is doing a thing with DHL where you can actually buy a space for something really small. Like I have this little micro SD card. Don't know if you can see it
Yep,
there,
I can see it. Yep.
but that holds a terabyte. So for
Wow.
$450, I can send this to the moon. Um,
Wow.
I have to send it to them by the end of this month. So like the videos after this month won't be on this chip, but hopefully they'll do something like that in the future. Or even, I just dreaming, maybe maybe this project will get attention. Somebody at NASA, maybe the first person that lands on the moon could take an update. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Because you have to make sure that you've got the technology that can read this. That's the other thing. Everything's so redundant nowadays. I
oh,
mean, remember?
exactly. I don't
Yeah,
even have a DVD player. I can't play
yeah,
DVDs.
yeah. I kept all my old school stuff. I even have my turntable.
That is a
But,
that is
yeah,
amazing. And also in addition that you got like the heat, the code, and the radiation. So
right.
um, the chances of it being readable are really, really slim. It's more of sort of
Bragging point.
I
I'm
guess
on the
something
moon.
you're on the
My,
moon.
my story's on the moon right now. And
Is
I hope a little green man comes and finds it and they get to watch TV and go, look at these people.
it will be quite the collection. Yeah.
Cool. That's cool. Sounds great. Well, I'm glad I made the cutoff.
Well, absolutely. And well, thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate it. I hope sometime maybe we can meet up in person after this COVID
Well,
thing's
I mean,
over.
we have no excuse. We're 2 towns away or 1 town away. So
I
maybe, are you going to do any, like Get with Hark, or are you going to do any public speaking in the Woodlands, or maybe at the Cooper School, for the students, or are you doing anything else besides the newspaper article?
um I mean I haven't I have the North Houston Space Society. We meet up usually at the Barbara Bush Library here in Spring. But beyond that, I haven't really done anything. But that's a good idea. The Cooper School, and what was the other one you mentioned? Hark?
Yeah, Houston Area Research Center.
Houston Area Research Center.
Yeah, that's yeah, and then gosh, just the Natural History Museum.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
you've got so many opportunities right here in Houston. And then have you been down and talked to your dreams and your approach to this project with NASA down in Bay Area Boulevard? Have you gone and
I
reached out to
haven't.
them?
I
Yeah,
haven't. Yeah, but that's a good idea too. I kind of my original plan was just to talk to people in coffee shops and at the mall, at the stores and things like that.
yeah,
Um, but I kind of just thought I needed to get the project further along before I did
yeah.
anything like that. So
Yeah, well, you've got so many resources. You're in the right place. So, to get the word out, that would be really great. It's too bad somebody can't create a mini iPad or something that the little slot thing would fit in, that you could protect it somehow in space. And as people went up, they could, like you said, they could just update it or watch it or whatever. It'd be funny. Can you imagine, these statements, 50 years from now, people be laughing at, well, look at these people. Of course we
what
took care of the environment or whatever.
what we need is a moon kiosk. It's like
Yeah,
a little kiosk on the moon, solar powered, just replaying the videos over and over again. Somebody shows up, they're like, "Oh, this is very peculiar, very
yeah.
peculiar."
The old photo booths. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for taking the time to interview me. And I made sure to put it right on my old school calendar so I wouldn't miss it. So,
I know there's nothing like pen and paper. That's what I use.
oh yeah, you never know when the Yahoo Mail gets locked up, or you didn't pay your subscription or something. Well,
Exactly. Or
thank
the
you.
battery dies. That's the other
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Well, I'm going to have to get myself a new iPad because this doesn't have the ability to create a green screen with an interesting background. I'm glad to see you don't have this beautiful picture of space, that you just have your blinds, because now I don't feel so bad.
I want everybody to feel comfortable.
I belong to 2 camera clubs, and everybody's really good about, creating their green screens with their photos that they've taken. And here I have the ceiling lights and things like that. I got to up my game here if Zoom is going to last that much longer. And I kept saying, I'm not going to invest in a new iPad just so I can Zoom. Well, didn't think I was going to be Zooming for 6 months.
Oh, I know. I know exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Good luck. Bye.